Welcome to the Osborne Group's video podcast. We hope you had a chance to watch our first one that we did a couple of weeks ago, and I hope you are going to come back for the next one in a couple of weeks. Today, we're talking about something that is very timely in terms of the time of year, but actually is important all year round. I don't know if you remember this, but a number of years ago, Indiana University did, and with the Bank of America, they do these big studies like every couple of years. And they did this study that really made me stop. It was, what were the factors that seemed to affect the size of the gift that high net worth people gave to various not-for-profits? So the first one, this. The first one was engagement. When people were engaged, on average, they gave $124,000 a year. And when they weren't, they gave $35,000. It jumped to $158,000 when you tapped into their expertise. And I know you're doing that already. You're getting people involved in things that they have expertise in. But here's the one I think, and we think, that gets neglected. When their children were involved, it jumped to $244,000. $35,000 to $44,000. So we have to make sure that our suite of engagement opportunities includes children, adult children, little children, kids, families. So how do we do this? So Bob and Laurel and I were thinking, here we're coming up to Thanksgiving. Here is such a perfect family time. What better time to talk about how we engage families? So let's start off first. Wanted to ask you, Laurel, as you think about just engaging families in general, and taking the statistics aside, what's kind of your feeling about that, about involving families?
So one of the things about family engagement is that so much of what you're doing with stewardship and engagement of donors already is probably really well tailored to just taking it a step further to engage families as well. I think when people hear things about family engagement, it feels like this whole new area of stuff that you have to do, and new events and new tactics. And my biggest advice and thinking around this is, look at what you're already doing, and are there just little tweaks, little augmentations that you could make to engage families? One of the things that I hear from donors a lot is, especially older donors, is that they're frustrated and worried that their children and grandchildren aren't going to love the same organizations that they love, and they want their kids to be involved. This is something they care deeply and passionately about, and they want their families not only to see what they're doing with the organization, but hope that their children will love it enough to continue giving, long after they're gone as well. And so I think looking at things that you're already doing, especially at this time of year, are there events that you're already having that you could just invite adult children to, or even small children to? Are there, could you even, just add family members to a mailing that you're doing? But just thinking about what you're already doing and, augmenting that. And of course, I will continue to talk about some of the other things that you might do as well. But the first piece of advice I would give you is, look at what you're already doing and just think about how you can augment it, add and tweak.
Okay, so, but how do I know that my children are even going to be interested? Or, so I'm a director of development, and I'm trying to think about how I augment and put family in. And I want to know, though, that the people that I'm speaking with want their children engaged and involved. So I want to just take a step back and ask you, Bob, you're a parent of a boy who's you're trying to raise as a philanthropic child, what have you seen work? Because maybe we could come up with some ideas that the not-for-profits could use, just by, how are you teaching your son about philanthropy?
Well, we teach, my son's name JP, he's 11. And so I think this is something that he's just starting to get interested in. So I know that he has events at school. So they recently raised money for Puerto Rico. And he was very, very excited about that. They raised $1,300 and he came home and immediately told me about it. And I hadn't asked him about it, and he was excited about it. My wife gets him very involved with over the holidays, giving presents and backpacks and jackets to children who are disadvantaged. So, and when kids are young, I think this is the time to really be able to teach them those values, that empathy. So if we as a not-for-profit can provide opportunities for kids to start to get excited about philanthropy and helping others. And I think that will in turn make their parents much more interested. I know after JP raised money for his bake sale, I was walking by another bake sale that had nothing to do with me or my child, and ended up buying, some cookies from that bake sale because I was feeling sort of in that mode of giving. And I think in some ways I'm sort of the best example of a kid who grew up with philanthropy, because you and my father as well. I don't think I would have been here. I think we started with Boys and Girls Club Bowl-a-thon. And that was very family oriented. So I think as a not-for-profit, some people are going to be interested in this or not, but I think in general, as a parent, you're interested in what your kids are interested in. And if we can provide opportunities for them, either as volunteers, to paint something or help out in some way, or some do a bake sale or do some small thing, up to with older children or even adult children, maybe giving circles or giving people an opportunity to talk about philanthropy and having discussions in our organization just about philanthropy, and just having kind of a discussion the way we're talking now. It allows people to start thinking about philanthropy and start, and as they're thinking about it, more likely to be involved with you, more likely to be engaged with your organization. So I think just by having the conversation, it can be a valuable thing for an organization.
Yeah, Laurel, a lot of the research supports that your generation, you guys, that it is really important to Xers, younger boomers, Xers, older millennials, about giving back and service. And 48% of high net worth women say that passing on that legacy to their children is really important to them. So how would you have if you were director of development and you wanted to have some kind of a discussion that would be helpful to the families, but also helpful to the organization, what would that look like?
It's so funny when we're trying to get information from people about stuff. It always feels like there's this big challenge about how do we broach the subject, or how do we know what people want? And when the answer is fairly simple, just ask them, right? There's not always this big mystery about how to trick someone into giving us that kind of information. We can be pretty straightforward with people, and in fact, people like that better when we're straightforward with them. And so, if we want to engage people's families in a more constructive way that's going to be really actually impactful to them, let's ask them how to engage their families. And let's have a strategic conversation about we know you have children, and we'd love to get your whole family involved in this. What's something that would be really great for your family, or what's something that your kids would really love to do, or even asking them, what kinds of causes are your children interested in, or what are they involved in, and thinking of all of the different questions that you can ask people that get to the heart of this, because again, we've mentioned several. Bob mentioned a lot of different ways you can get people involved, but the only way to really know what's going to work for somebody is to ask them if they are interested in this, and if this is something that's important to them. And I think, again, when you think about getting those adult children involved, the Xers and the young boomers, being able to just sit down with them and have a conversation and ask them directly, what are you passionate about, and what are you interested in? And I know that your parents are really involved with our organization. I would love for you to be involved too. What's something that would really get you excited about getting more involved with us? Things like that.
Yeah. And stewardship, one of the things that I remember is how excited kids can be when they get something back from the not-for-profit that they gave, that they hear from them. It just was like us, just like anybody would get so excited about it. And we're going into, again, this Thanksgiving season. We're going into this gratitude season. How could we use stewardship to kind of reinforce this family engagement idea?
Well, I mean, there's stewardship. I mean, I love stewardship because I think it's the most creative part of development. So I think there's lots of different ways that you can use stewardship. So one, I would say, is make sure you do stewardship of some kind, because many of us don't, or confuse it with sending out an acknowledgement or a thank you. I know, my own son is very excited when he gets personal thank you notes from the organization, where they donate Christmas toys and again, jackets and backpacks and the like. And it really brings it home. I think it really shows him that this is real, that there's somebody on the other side of his generosity that really genuinely is happy, and their life is genuinely better off because of something that he did. And I think that makes him feel really, 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 really good. And I think it makes me feel really good as a parent that he feels good. So I think thinking about, if you're involving children that are younger, having doing something that's going to resonate with the kids, doing something that is not just a letter maybe, but it's a picture or something that's more creative that because my 11-year-old's not going to, I mean, he can and will read a letter if I make him do it, but it's probably not the best way to engage him. But thinking of creative ways to engage children, and I think expressing our own generosity as an organization, really kind of living the message that we're putting out there, and really showing our donors that we're grateful, not just communicating the impact but really saying thank you. This has made a difference in the lives of our clients and the people that we've served, and doing that promptly. And I tell clients all the time, this is not an area you can really overdo. You're probably underdoing it, and you probably can't overdo it. So really thinking about what you're doing and do more of it, and do it in different ways that vary.
The different ways is so important, isn't it? I was just thinking about, you were just saying that you could, try and get JP to read a letter, but you'd have to kind of push him to do it, because we're such a visual society. We've become such a visual society. And so we've got to make sure that we're using visuals in our thank yous, because adults don't read either. We open our mail over our recycle bin. Laurel, when you think about visuals, what comes to mind? We're going to show gratitude and impact, and stand out in this season when people are swamped with messaging. Anything come to mind?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is just to stay on mission, because I think what I tend to see a lot when people try to incorporate visuals is it's kind of visuals for visuals sake. And it's not always something, it might be something that's beautiful or interesting to look at, but it doesn't necessarily tell a story about the organization's mission. So I would say, first and foremost, make sure that your visuals are mission focused, that they have something to do with what you're doing and what you're thanking people for supporting. So, I see a lot of things. We work with a lot of youth oriented programs. You'll see a lot of things with, hand-drawn pictures that kids in their programs have done, pictures of service recipients. There's so many different ways for you to tell a story visually. Just make sure that it's actually related to what your donors are supporting. But things like holiday cards. I love, these days technology is so easy now. And the ability for someone to just grab a cell phone and do a 1 to 2, 1.5, 2 minute little message in front of a program that you can then post on your Facebook page or email out to your supporters. You can, I remember when I started in development, when we wanted to do a video, it was like, okay, well, we have to find $5,000 in the budget and, find time. It was this huge thing to do a 7-minute video when I first started in this business. And now I can grab my phone and I can go make a video right now for nothing. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to have awesome production value. It just has to say something important and meaningful to people. So, don't be afraid to just do things that are inexpensive and quick and just get it out there. Like Bob said, you can't do too much of this. Technology is just giving us so many options now.
Thank you, YouTube.
Yes.
Because you know what YouTube has done? It has got people liking amateur video.
Right.
Matter of fact, we think it's more authentic than professional video. So you're exactly right. Just having some on your tablet, on your phone. And so now we're trying to get the message, though, to everybody. Because if we're trying to engage families, we've got to steward Bob and his wife and his son. We've got to steward everybody. And I worry that we don't capture that information, or we don't know how to reach the family. And so that feels to me like something important that not-for-profits should do. I don't need to just know the names of the kids. I need to know, how do I get in touch with the kids? How do I keep them? Bob, one of the last things, as we're coming up towards the end of our time together here, gratitude is just like engagement is personal, and Laurel was suggesting that you ask, how do you like being engaged?
Yeah.
Gratitude is personal too. How one feels appreciated, but we're sometimes a little bit reluctant to both ask that question, but also to share the answer, because it makes us seem a little, self-serving, or how do we get that conversation so that me as your donor, here's what makes me feel valued and appreciated?
Sure. I mean, the short answer is just what Laurel had said before, is to ask. But what I always try to do is relate it to my own philanthropy. So I, as an officer, try to say something about how I feel about it. Like, this makes me grateful, or when I give, I think about this, or I think about, what do you think about? What makes you grateful? What's the best philanthropic experience that you ever had, and what made it so great? So I think we have to ask no matter what, but I find those kind of a little bit more personal questions that are not obviously related to what I might be having the meeting about or the conversation about. I try to relate it as much to myself as possible. And I think when it comes to kids, parents like talking about their kids, so you can always ask.
Yes. That's exactly right. Unfortunately, sometimes they have the bad stories. My child gave to this and never heard back. My child, gave to that. You want to make sure, as a not-for-profit, that you're one of the good stories, because the stories are viral. People talk to each other. And when we do this well, people will share. And just a final note, just want to remind everyone who's listening to us and watching us, how important it is to steward my volunteering as well. Now, we should be grateful for everything that our donors give to us. It's not just the money. It's the idea I gave you. It's the time I gave you. It's the expertise I gave you. We want to make sure that we are grateful for all that our donors do for us.
Absolutely.
All right. You guys have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you next time in about 2 weeks.
Thanks, Karen.
Thanks, everybody.